All right. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Real Hawk Talk. We're here with Brian Nemhauser, Evan Hill, and me, Jeff Simmons. And Nathan Ernst should be joining us soon. And we have a lot in store this week for you guys. It's the Seahawks bye week. They're coming off a massive, massive win. Huge game, 16-10 over the Los Angeles Rams, a game that felt like a classic Seahawks game. They haven't had a game like that all year where it was just a total grind till the end against a really good team. It felt like a classic Pete Carroll game where they should have put the game away, but they just kept hanging in there and kept hanging in there. And it felt like every big game in the Seahawks era where you felt they were about to put them away, but they're only up 6 points. And they leave that. Cooper Kupp almost scores at the end. It was just a crazy, crazy game, and it felt great to be in a game like that. I don't know about you guys, but they haven't had a game really like that all year where it just felt like classic Seahawks game. I'm pacing around my house during the game. I'm screaming like a madman. I haven't felt like that maybe since 2014. And I don't know. There's a lot to take away from that game. It was pretty crazy on a number of different fronts. So I don't know, Brian, if you want to start, what was the biggest thing you took away from that game, and what are your thoughts after that big division win where they take the lead in the division back?
Well, sorry, I'm having a funny conversation with somebody who's already on. And welcome Nathan, who's joining late.
Here we go.
You'll have to probably unhide him now, Jeff, because we're so ruthless with our allowances here. Yeah, we'll take care of you, Nathan. Just pipe down for a minute. But somebody really thinks Evan's cute, and so I'm having a conversation with them. I'm a little skeptical that it's not just his fiance who's somehow logged on and is involved in this. And I'll make sure and pass along the username to your fiance in case there's any.
Oh, that's too funny. Track him down.
But no, first off, I mean, it's great to have everyone back. It's great to have the gang together. We haven't had the four of us all on for a while, so that's gonna be fun. And if folks are just joining and you're gonna be listening to this later as well, please subscribe. It's a great way to grow the base and make sure you're getting reminders when stuff's happening. Sometimes it happens ad hoc. We're moving ad hoc. Did you get that? We're moving to Wednesdays at 7 o'clock is going to be probably our standard time. So people should just set their reminders because there's going to be great Seahawks talk every week, 7 o'clock. And we've got actually a lot of guests lined up in the coming weeks, all shapes and sizes, some really cool names. So I think people will be excited about that. But you asked me a question and I totally ignored you because,
No, those are important announcements.
I just ramble. What did you ask me again?
So what was your big takeaway from the game, man? That was a crazy game.
Oh my gosh! So my big takeaway, I'll give you two.
Yeah.
First was I'm gonna swear, but fuck, I love that. Like, oh man, like it just felt so good to see the Seahawks be the team that came on the other side of a game like that. It's been so long since it's felt like the ball bounced their way or a call went their way. Or, a pass dropped instead of being caught. Like, all that stuff just kind of worked. And so I really relished that win because, God, it's been hard to beat that team. No matter how good we were, no matter how bad they were, it's just hard. So that was my first reaction. My second was like, come on, people. Are you really going to react to the first time we beat the Rams away in a game that almost everybody expected us to lose by complaining about the offense? Like, come on. Like, yes, they sucked, but they won. They friggin' won. So, like, can we just enjoy that for a moment without, like, all the frickin' rain dropping on the parade? Come on. So those are my two reactions.
How about you, Evan?
My first one is Earl Thomas had one hell of a game. I cannot believe how impressive he was with his second, karate chop block on the 1 yard line. I see. I didn't even actually notice it at first. I had a buddy who pointed it out that it went out of bounds, and I didn't even really understand what happened in the moment. It just happened so quick. But just to have the instincts to like pull from that center field position all the way to the right side and the hustle that takes and just the focus. I just can't get over like how incredible that play was by Earl. So I think it really just highlights that like we heard that like defend every blade of grass kind of like motto last year, maybe it was 2 years ago. But I just thought that was really cool to kind of see like the defense, they can bend a little bit, but they don't typically break in the end. And it's kind of cool to see the defense rebound in the second half and kind of like hold their ground in the second half of that game. So I was a little bit worried about the defense in the first half, but I was really impressed to see them kind of hold their ground and really kind of take over in the second half of the game. So the first takeaway was, wow, Earl Thomas, defense, bend, don't break. Second takeaway, I'm gonna have to go against you on this, Brian, and I hope you don't hate me for it. I am probably the most positive person ever, like when it comes to absolutely anything, and especially the Seahawks. So I am always looking for like, the best of situations, but I was really, really disappointed with the offense. And I'm going to tell you why I was disappointed with the offense. Not the typical like, oh, they didn't put up enough points. To me, when it came down to it in the fourth quarter, the defense had to make several really big stops. And, it was a couple turnovers and that type of stuff. And they gave the offense the opportunity to shut down the game 2 or 3 times. It was like 8, 9, 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter where if the offense had just moved the ball and maybe gotten a few first downs, it would have absolutely closed the game. So I think to me, it was disappointing to see like not that they struggled in the first 3 quarters. I was expecting them to struggle throughout the game, but where was this like killer mentality by the offense in the fourth quarter where they had this opportunity to close down the game and they just didn't do it. They didn't do it 3 or 4 possessions in a row. And that's to me, that's when you got to show up. If you pride yourself on finishing the game and not starting the game, then you have to finish the game. You can't just not start and not finish. Like,
well, so here, like, I got to jump in. So we're not actually in disagreement, I don't think. And I would actually like it if we were, because that's more fun. But yeah, of course, as they play, the offense is disappointing. The offense is bad. Like, all that stuff's true.
Yeah.
But if your reaction when the whistle blows and the Seahawks win is, man, the offense sucked. I just think you are missing out on, like, it is so hard to win. You better friggin' appreciate it. When it happens, yes, on Tuesday, Monday afternoon, complain about the offense.
Okay,
5 minutes after they win, shut the hell up about the offense. They won.
No, that's completely fair. I completely agree. A road win in LA, not St. Louis. I almost said St. Louis. Sorry, St. Louis. A road win in LA is a big deal. It's I think like Davis and a few other people said, it feels like 2-3 wins because the next game, the next divisional game we have with them is at home, and that's a big deal. So it feels like a couple wins, and to be up 3-2 instead of 2-3, and with the Rams firmly in lead in the division. That'd be not a good scenario. So,
all right, Nathan, how about you, man? What was your big takeaways from the game?
Man, I just thought that game was a lot of fun. Like,
yeah,
as fun as a 16-10 game I think could be. As fun as a game where the offense was really ugly at times can be. There was the whole Jared Goff and is Todd Gurley going to be an MVP candidate, and Sean McVay, and people talk about him like he's the next big offensive genius. And I mean, I don't want to take too much away from those guys, except for Jared Goff because he's not that good.
Yes,
he's not. I don't know how. A lot of people wrote nice things about Jared Goff, and I respect the hell out of a lot of the people, but I don't know how people were watching him and thinking that he was. I mean, anyways, he's fine, whatever. But I mean, that was fun, right? I mean, like I it was fun to have I think that's the closest thing I've felt to like those old Niners games where we really had a rivalry. A couple of the Cardinals games were fun like that, but it was just I don't know. I enjoyed the hell out of it. The other big thing was I think kind of everyone's touching on it, but like I think this everybody keeps talking about their offense going through an identity crisis, and I think that it was never more on display than that game. They were hanging on to that old kind of pound it run game with Carson, and Carson was good enough that it was not a complete disaster. But but without him, it really fell apart, right? I mean, Lacey couldn't get close, Rolf couldn't get close, and I think it was just really apparent that the game they want to play and the game they're good at, they're not the same game. And they're almost like trying to stitch them together. Like they'll go like heavy, under center on one snap, and then they'll go 5 wide shotgun on the next. And it's like, what are you guys? So that's a little concerning. But overall, it was it was a hell of a game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And there was one play, I think it was in the fourth quarter, where they had a 3rd and long, and they lined up Trey Madden out wide on the left side. And they threw a pass to Baldwin that wasn't even close to the sticks. And it was a big play at that time. It was still a 3-point game. That play pretty much summed up everything Nathan was talking about. Evan knows the play I'm talking about. Why is Trey Madden ever out wide as a receiver?
Why is Trey Madden on the roster?
Yeah, like number one.
Preach, Brian. Preach, Pastor Brian. Why?
I mean, give me Marcel Reese every day. Anyway. But here's so I want to bring up something Mike Holmgren said. I think it was a couple weeks ago, which I loved. It was so classic Holmgren, and I can't remember who was asking the question, but it was basically like, hey, if you're back in your coaching and you've got an offense that's struggling, and your defensive coordinator comes in and is like, we're having to be on the field all the time. We're there for all these plays. You guys got to do your part. We keep going 3 and out. What would you do? Or he said, if the defensive coordinator said, you guys keep going 3 and out, Holmgren say, all right, what's keeping you from holding them to 3 and out? That's your job. Make them go 3 and out. You want to get off the field? Get off the field. And I love that, because that's absolutely the way you've got to drive accountability and responsibility. And this is the best paid defense in the NFL. They've got more all-pros and Pro Bowl players than any other team. And what gets lost, and I'm an apologist for the defense over and over, because I love those guys. I love how good that part of the team is. But how many times do we see special teams pin the other team deep, and then the defense lets them out to midfield? Missed opportunity to make the life easier on the offense. How many times do we see, that the team goes, holds them to 3 and out a couple of times, and the offense finally scores and pulls ahead, and the defense lets them come back? How many times do we see at the end of the games when, like it or not, the offense there was no defensive scores, unless I'm forgetting something, right? So this was all offensive points. The offense had scored more points than the opponent. We were ahead. At that point, the defense, how many times do we see the defense give up the late touchdown, which they almost did again? So it was really nice for me to see the defense just like own their shit. Like they were there. They were consistently getting off the field, making great plays, and they got better as that game went along, other than the very last drive.
And that was going to be my takeaway. And I want to shout out one position group. I know Evan mentioned Earl Thomas. Got to shout him out. But the defensive line, we've been hard on them all year. In that second half, Frank Clark was a freaking animal. Yeah. Frank Clark was going up against Andrew Whitworth, maybe the best left tackle in the game right now. He's allowed 1 pressure all year heading into that game. And all game, I'm wondering, why is Clark lining up against him? Why don't they have him on the other side? Why don't they move him inside? Every time I kept saying that, he would blow right by him. And Frank Clark, Jaron Reed, who I've been shouting at all year, had that big pressure leading the interception. Sheldon Richardson, who we asked Brady Henderson about because he's been kind of quiet. He makes those freaking crazy athletic plays on the interception. He's there to scoop up the fumble. Naz Jones was really good. Brandon Jackson, a guy who I didn't even know who he was going into that game. So it was nice to see those guys finally make an impact, because they're such a highly paid group, and a lot of people were worried how they'd respond after losing Cliff Averill, who's been so good for this team, maybe the best defensive lineman on the team last year. So for me, it was great to see them really take over a game against a quality offensive line, a quality team. And yeah, that was, to me, the biggest takeaway is this team just can't win a game easily. Every game feels like, it did feel like that old Niners game. I'm pulling out my hair and screaming at the TV, and I'm pacing every time they have the ball on 3rd down, because I don't know what the hell they're going to do. But yeah, I think Nathan nailed my big offensive takeaway is there's still that disconnect in between how they want to play philosophically and what their personnel is. Because every game you look, and there's still those plays where like Tyler Lockett's wide open down the field, and they're wondering why you can't use these guys consistently and why it's not working, and they're still trying to pound the ball with Eddie Lacy. And
They're getting there though.
It's just
Like,
they're starting to get there.
they're evolving. It seems like.
Let me ask Nathan a question on this. Actually, do you ever think
Mhm.
in the Pete Carroll regime, in the Pete Carroll era, do you think they will ever change fundamentally, philosophically on the offense? Do you think there will ever be a radical shift there from that like power run game?
No, I mean what they'll probably do is they'll shift, like, they need to shift to more shotgun runs. If you're going to be stubborn about the run the plays that you're good at running, right? I mean, use more read option and stuff like that. And I could see them, making that kind of a shift in their philosophy, but I don't think anything. I don't know. I'd have to see it from Pete to believe it before I see major philosophical shifts from a 68-year-old guy.
Makes
And
sense.
I listened to the same interview as Brian brought up, and I just wish. Imagine how good Pete would be if he had like an offensive coordinator like Holmgren. Imagine if he somehow combined them into one coaching staff. Like Dan Quinn brought in Kyle Shanahan. That was his first move. I always wonder how Pete would do with like a really bright offensive staff, because I know Brian's hit on Carl Smith and we've all talked about Bevel and Cable. Imagine if you can bring those guys together somehow.
Well, that was supposed to be Jeremy Bates, right?
Yeah, that didn't last so long. Those 4th and 1 fade routes.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who that guy was, the tall stiff that they used to throw those to the receiver.
Yeah,
Mike Williams?
No, way stiffer.
Obamanu.
Yes.
Nope.
No?
Even more stiff.
Sheesh.
Yeah, I'm going to look him up while you guys keep talking.
What was this, before I was born or something?
Probably.
No, I just imagine this team with all the defensive talent, with an Andy Reid type or someone running their offense that did something different and did something creative. Because
See, Andy Reid would be awesome. He runs such a creative run game. I think he'd be an amazing fit for Carroll. He's the guy that I keep coming back to when you talk about like them evolving and incorporating short stuff and quick stuff and still being like an aggressive running team. I think he's kind of the model for that.
yeah, and if you've watched Kansas City, they've kind of adopted what Seattle wants to do. They've adopted West Coast philosophy with more of spread concepts. And that's exactly how Seattle's personnel, and they really focus on getting the ball to Hunt, getting the ball to Tyreek Hill. Seattle could run a similar kind of scheme to that, right? That's how their personnel sets up.
I don't know. I don't know if their line works for what Andy really does.
Yeah.
But I mean, but like, well, and not just because they're like bad, but like, I mean, Andy Reid does all kinds of crazy stuff with the running game. I mean, he'll pull anybody at any time, and I don't know if the line quite works there, but the idea, like philosophically, definitely fits.
Mm-hmm.
So the name I was looking for is Ruvel Martin.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
He caught the touchdown in that.
Receptions and 9 targets for 158 yards, 22.6 average. The guy is a beast. No wonder they were throwing to him on
17,
4th.
Charlie Whitehurst threw him that touchdown in the opening drive.
Ruvel.
My head is full of useless Seahawks information.
I love it, dude. That's why you're here. That's why
Yeah,
you're here.
man. Charlie Whitehurst led that crazy good drive. Everyone was a believer for 5 minutes. I don't think
never would.
he was like the headline of Peter King's article that week.
Oh my gosh, I don't know, guys. If I wish you could have all been there for Charlie Whitehurst's first public training camp practice. He would like toss his hair, and like half of the like berm, all the people on the ladies on the berm would look, and it was like I was like, oh god. And he just strutted, and he never seemed like anywhere close to as interested in football as he was in his hair. Yeah, that was doomed from the beginning. How did we get here? What's next? Sorry. Get control of this, Jeff.
All right. We'll get a little more into the Rams game later. I'm always happy to talk touchdown Jesus, or check down Charlie, whatever you want to call him. Clipboard, who knows? But yeah. We don't have any guests tonight, but since we have the whole Hawk Blogger staff around, we want to arrange kind of a roundtable. It's the Seahawks. It's the only week the Seahawks don't have a game that we're going to be doing the show for quite a while, and we got all of us together. So we're going to do a little roundtable segment. I'm going to open up with a question, and we're going to go through all 4 of us and kind of give our take on the question. And If anyone wants to chime in with questions, we're happy to add them to the round table. But since we got the whole staff, for pretty much the whole staff here, I figure this is a good way to transition right now. So let's start off the top. It's been a polarizing topic all year, and you can't go on Twitter during a Seahawks game without seeing a take on this. But how would you grade Russell Wilson so far this year? Nathan, how about you start with this one?
I just want to set the framework of this discussion here. Are we talking how would we grade him relative to him, or are we talking about how we grade him relative to the NFL or our expectations or what, right?
Good. Let's say it relative to expectations.
I mean, relative to expectations, C minus D level. I mean, I thought he was going to be. I had a lot of the same thoughts that Brian talked about. This felt like a really special year coming out of the preseason, and that obviously just hasn't been there at all. And a lot of that is on Russ. I mean, he's had really bad moments. He's had both bad reads and bad throws. I think that to this point, it's probably been his worst year of his career. So relative to expectations, it's been a pretty big disappointment for me.
All right, how about you, Evan?
Yeah, no, I'm in complete agreement with Nathan. Maybe not such a low grade, maybe like a C plus, but he has definitely not come out of the gates kind of bringing hell with him like I kind of expected. But maybe that's partly due to the George Fant injury. I mean, that's got to play a role, but I mean, also he's missed just frankly a lot of throws that he's typically used to making, that we're typically used to watching him make. He's just missed in the first half. And, he's kind of finding his groove in the second half a little bit in some of these games. But overall, I think pretty disappointing so far. But, maybe he gets it together in the second half of the season. So who knows?
Brian, you want to jump in here?
Yeah. So grade for Russell, C, I guess. I'm not quite as harsh. I love that Nathan's coming out strong. It's always better to not hedge on an opinion. And I think, as I've said before, I just think compared to what I've hoped for him in terms of how he would take control and grow as a player, I'm just not seeing evidence of it. And I'm sure there's people screaming, at the radio if they're listening to this on a podcast or at the screen right now as they're hearing me talk. But I know a lot of it's offensive line related and the line makes things tough. But the offensive line being a problem has been a constant for Russell Wilson since he entered the league. There hasn't been a point when the team had a great offensive line. There was a few years maybe where the offensive line was mediocre, but they've always been 26th or worse in sack rate since 2012. They've never been better than that. So that's bottom quarter, fifth of the league in sack rate. So pressure has been an issue always. And if you want to adjust and avoid pressure, a big part of it has to be in understanding how to do pre-snap reads, how to adjust protections, how to identify the most likely receiver to be open the quickest, and to get rid of the ball. And I don't expect a quarterback to come out of college and be ready to do all those things and identify all that stuff, but he's been in the league long enough. I guess I would give the coaching staff an F on what they've been able to do for him. Pete talked about giving him a master's course in football at some point, and they couldn't do it for whatever rule purposes. How about this? Hire a damn quarterback coach that isn't 7,000 years old and hasn't coached anybody of note. Bring in somebody who actually knows how to develop a quarterback and will sit with him. Russell had to do it in the offseason to go back to his old North Carolina coach, I think is who he talked to break down. I'm like, that's ridiculous. I'm glad Russell did that. I respect that. But there are too many people out there that could be helping him grow as a player. And I feel like the coaching staff's letting him down. So I do feel like there's a couple pieces in there that aren't just about Russell.
Yeah. I know if CJ was here, he'd probably be screaming at all of us right now. But I'm more or less in line with you guys. C minus. There's just too many inconsistent stretches. There's too many times where Russell just can't do is struggling with basic quarterback awareness. There was a safety in the Indianapolis game. There's been too many plays where he just isn't making the throws and a quality NFL quarterback should be making. There was a ton of misses earlier in the year. And there's just been too up and down when it comes to just overall consistency. And yeah, we have to admit, offensively, he's taking way too many hits. There's pressures every game. But as Brian said, that's just part of the package, and you're going to have to adjust with what you have. And for Russell to jump to that next level, you need to be more consistent, and you need to be doing just the basics of quarterbacking. And there's just too many times, you saw it in the first quarter last week, where he's not doing a consistency. And we all think Russell was going to be an MVP candidate. We talked about it in the preseason. We saw what he's like when he's rolling and when he's comfortable and when he's not thinking too much and when he's in those 2-minute situations. And that Russell is great. He comes out, he was there in the second half of the Colts game, a lot of the Titans game in the second half. And you saw it in stretches in the second quarter where he's hitting third downs and complete. But until we see that up and down, he's where we all want to expect more. So moving on to the second. Yeah.
Sorry, I got to interrupt you. I'm sorry. But you brought up that point about this hot stretch in the second quarter. And I'm just curious if everyone else saw this, but it felt like Pete actually acknowledged that they like to, in the first quarters or the first half of road games especially, look for explosive passes and big plays downfield. And you saw them doing it again, and it wasn't that effective, just like it wasn't that effective in Tennessee. And then on that touchdown drive, it seemed like every pass was intermediate, like 7 to 12 yards, 15 yards. And they were successful with it, and it looked repeatable. And then they went away from it, it felt like, the rest of the game. They were looking deep again. Was that just me, or like, is that something that happened in that game and maybe something that should be changing as part of their philosophy?
Yeah, it's just, again, back to the identity. It doesn't seem like they have any idea who they are. And so you see these kind of wild swings from like drive to drive. And people used to complain about, and people still complain about just the run pass balance. And there is that. I mean, I don't buy into that as much. But there's also just like, from just like a passing perspective, like, are you a heavy set play action team? Are you a spread them out, 4-5 wide shotgun team? Like, what are you? And they don't seem to know.
And one of the notable developments of the last game was how they used Jimmy Graham. He was separated. He was isolated a lot more from the formation. They finally used Graham in the way that we've all been probably screaming about for 3 years. But what took so long? Why did this take 3 years to figure out he can't block and he needs to be isolated? Evan's gonna end up with hair like all of us by the end of this show. But
my head's about to explode. Just like you said, though, if you tweeted it somewhere on Twitter or a couple days ago or something, you were like, it came 3 years too late. Like, why did we just now figure out how to target Jimmy Graham? Isolated, pull the receivers to one side, isolate Jimmy Graham, get him one-on-one. Why did we just figure that out now? Why?
Is he good at that? Is there a lot of reasons to think he's good at that? I mean, maybe it took this long because he's not good at it, and it happened to work once. But like,
didn't you see it a lot in New Orleans though? Or
yeah, I thought he did it plenty in New Orleans. That was part of it.
No.
Jimmy, to me, is a guy.
Seahawks think he's chasing with him.
Jimmy's going to make crazy catches. Like, he's going to make spectacular catches, but he doesn't run great routes. He doesn't separate for as athletic as he is. Like, we've seen them throw fades to him, and he doesn't come down with the ball very well. I don't know. It just seems like if he was good at that, they would probably have been more successful at it all this time. And he's had a ton of success. Like, I mean, I know it's easy to kind of crap on him, and the red zone stuff is frustrating, but like, he was really, really good last year.
Yeah.
And so it's not like he can't be successful in this offense, but I don't know that this idea that like, isolate him in the red zone, they can't figure out how to do that. Like, maybe he's just not real good at it.
Maybe we got to do some research into his time in New Orleans and see what see how he functioned into that offense, because I just remember seeing highlights like left and right of them doing that. Or am I wrong?
No, I think you're right, Evan, and I mean, I think you're right as well, Nathan, in that he's not necessarily the greatest route runner, but I seem to remember him getting plenty of separation in New Orleans on a number of plays and seam routes. And there's things, there might be routes that he runs that Russell doesn't throw, just based on the way that Seattle runs things. Is possible. I think he also is probably more reliant on play action, and we haven't had much run game to pull people off from a linebacker perspective.
Yeah.
But two like kind of, gripes I got to get out. But one was, everyone's like celebrating the fade to Jimmy in the end zone. I still thought that was a crappy throw. Like that, like it wasn't high. Like Jimmy completely boxed out his player, but I didn't feel like we finally found something. I still don't understand why Russell hasn't been able to work with receivers and consistently get the high fade thrown where only his receiver can reach it. And that might just be me. And the other is like, Russell threw that terrible interception in that game. That was a huge play.
Oof.
And all I've heard about is how amazing he is for chasing down the guy and tackling him. Like, that's all I hear. And I'm like, but he threw an unacceptable interception in the red zone.
Lost the game.
And the play before that, like there was a wide open, I think it was Jimmy Graham, like standing there by himself for like 5 minutes, and then he finally threw it to him. Like, anyway, sorry. Those are two things that came to me as part of this conversation. I was like, ah.
All right, so sticking with Jimmy and Russell, that helps transition to the next question. This is a little more fun one because we'll probably get more of a variety. But next question for the roundtable here of Hawk Blogger analysts. Which player has surprised you the most in a positive way, and which player has been the biggest disappointment? So how about you, Evan? How about you start with this one?
No, I got to think about this one. This one's a tough question. Pass on to Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, pleasant surprise might be Fetty, which is hard for me to really come to terms with. Biggest disappointment, though, I mean, that one's kind of interesting. I don't know that I have a really standout one. KJ, maybe, just because we're used to such a consistent and kind of high level from him, and it doesn't feel like he's been very impactful. And he had some issues in the Tennessee game. So, I would say that just his play in general hasn't been, quite where you think he's going to be, I guess. And I've been disappointed with Eddie Lacy a little bit. A lot of that's a factor of the offensive line, obviously, but and he's had some moments where he's kind of lowered the boom a little bit. But I thought that he might work in this offense with his patience and vision, and never having been particularly athletic. I thought maybe he could find a way to make this work, and it just, it doesn't seem like it's gonna.
What's interesting about Fetty is we talked about him a ton in the preseason. Pro Football Talk, well, not Pro Football Focus. I was looking at some of their grades today, and we could all debate those for hours. But Fetty's scoring really high in pass blocking and really low in run blocking. Opposite of everything we talked about in the preseason, right?
Mm-hmm.
This totally backwards from the guy we debated heavily all summer.
It's very heavily influenced by this last game. He had his best graded pass blocking performance in his career, and it's by a long shot. I don't think he's ever even been in the positive. Mm-hmm. He was strongly positive in this game, and so that's having an impact there. But I'd echo what Nathan's saying there, and we have talked about it. I think we mentioned in the preseason from game to game, Fetty was making progress of all the linemen. He was doing that, and I've been as critical as anybody about that guy, but I absolutely recognize progress, and he's making it, and he's probably one of our best hopes we've got for a lineman that can solidify and be part of the plan going forward. So, God, it would be great. I will raise my hand and say, when they called his name out on draft day, my first reaction was not good. Not something I probably should say here, but if it turns out to be a legitimate starter, those are pretty hard to come by on the offensive line right now. So that's not the worst thing.
How about you, Bri? Pleasant surprise, biggest disappointment.
Pleasant surprise. I'm gonna go with Blair Walshy.
Big game.
Yeah, he had an underrated part of that win. I don't know about anybody else, but my son and I watching the game, and every kick we're like, oh, not really every kick, but it kicks the end of the game really to go up, and then the one to go up by 6 points. I was like, I don't know if I can look. Like I just feel like he's gonna choke. Like it's not gonna go well. I'll admit I thought that. And he came through. He came through 3 times on 3 tough kicks on grass. And he's 9 for 10. Knock on wood, all that stuff. But I think it's been nice, and I've enjoyed cheering for him. I like a good comeback story, so that's been kind of fun. And CJ loves the way he dresses, and I can't disagree with that either. So, and then what was it? Disappointment.
Yeah.
I could list a couple, but I want to leave stuff for Evan. So I will go with the guy I would name would be like kind of kicking someone while they're down. So I'm not going to name him. I'll go with Thomas Rawls. I felt like he was going to come back stronger, and I still believe in him, and I will offer that. To me, it was no question which running back should have been in there last game. Rawls felt close to breaking a couple. Like I thought there was a few holes where I expected him to come out the other side and go for a big gain. And they kept pulling him. So I feel like he just needs to get his rhythm back, I'm hoping. But so far, he's still just been a pretty unacceptable running back.
Yeah, so kind of following up off of that, I'm actually going to go with 2 free agent acquisitions. Pleasant surprise is actually Luke Jokel, who I've kind of been watching, not personally the tape myself, but the tape of like Nathan and Ben Baldwin and all those guys posting on Twitter, and it appears he's been like playing really solid and during games he's holding up, and he's looked like consistently our number 1 or number 2 best offensive lineman behind Britt. So obviously he's got this little knee scope cleanup thing this weekend or this next week. But overall, I think he's looked pretty impressive and absolutely like a candidate for an extension. So I know a lot of us, including myself, actually kind of knocked that acquisition in the offseason. He had the knee injury and we paid him too much money and all that type of stuff. And I think those were all valid kind of critiques at the time. But he's kind of proven himself, and I'm impressed. So he's the pleasant surprise, Luke Jokel. The biggest disappointment has been Eddie Lacy. I think Nathan said it. We paid him like what, $4 or $5 million, something like that. It's just, to me, I was kind of skeptical of that signing initially, and then I like slowly kind of talked myself into it and got a little hyped into it. But now I'm just extremely disappointed again. Like it in relation to his salary. Like, what has he done? He's done nothing. So yeah, maybe it's the offensive line. I mean, run blocking has been pretty bad. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but it hasn't looked great. And maybe it's a combination of that. But Eddie Lacy just hasn't been impressive.
Yeah.
I would say Tanner McAvoy probably needs to get a shout out for disappointments, unfortunately. I mean, I probably was higher on him than most people, but he has been a disaster.
Yeah, that's a good answer. He's had a rough year. Even
Really
that trick play. Everyone was knocking the coaching staff on that trick play, which kind of fair, but that play worked. J.D. McKissick's left on Connor Barwin, wide open. He hesitates. The safety comes over, makes an interception. Can't even get that right. That's what he's here for.
So hold up. I actually want to stop on this point for a second. I know there's a big McAvoy fan base on Twitter, but we're going to go straight at them in the gut. What is McAvoy's actual main positive contribution? What's his selling point? I genuinely don't know the answer. So what's his greatest qualities? What does he contribute to this team? What has he contributed to this team in the past?
First of all, you cannot sound credible as a critic if you're going to call him McAvoy. It's Mac.
Oh, did I say it wrong? So bad.
Yeah, so it's Tanner McAvoy. And I would say that I see, Pete Carroll's been very clear in what he sees in Tanner McAvoy. He sees a 6'6" athlete, and Evan goes directly to the puppy. Introduce your puppy, Evan. What's his name?
His name is Frodo, like Frodo Baggins.
Nice. He's adorable. And he's a rescue. That's pretty cool.
Yes, Herky. Sorry, go back to your McAvoy.
Yeah. So Pete loves him because he's 6'6", because he's played safety, quarterback, and wide receiver. So he's a great athlete. He's a good special teams player. He actually last year blocked a punt. I think he blocked a kick as well. I think he had I know he had one punt block in Arizona, and then I think he had maybe one other thing he did. And he's been good on coverage units. He has the ability as a tall receiver to be a blocking receiver, which is pretty important in this type of offense and the running game that they want to do and get to the outside. And he's shown pretty remarkable hands at times in there. So I think that those are all the things that they believe in with him. And, because he's also on he's on a rookie deal, they have club control on him. Hello, Nate. That's my son, Nate. I'll hand it off to the next person now.
Jokel's a good answer from Evan. That was one I was going to hit on there. He was kind of regarded as that sign was regarded as a joke. Like everyone, I think Bill Barnwell or someone called it the worst signing of the offseason. And the amount of money they gave him was pretty frightening at first based on his past. And he had a horrible opener game against Mike Daniels and the Packers. But every week, the guard tape, which has been disastrous really since Carpenter left at left guard, who had his ups and downs, he's been really solid the last 3 games. It's unfortunate what happened with him, and we're going to touch on that later for sure because he was really coming on. And, yeah, as Evan said, he's definitely a candidate for an extension, but I don't want to use the same answer. So the guy I'm going to go with, it's been Shaq Griffin. I know it's pretty basic, but Shaq's been really awesome, man. To come out and that first game, Jeremy Lin gets booted from the game, and you're going against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, and to hold your own. And that wasn't a fluke. He's been getting better every weekend. He's making plays on the ball, and they're testing him. And he had a couple issues in run support last time. He missed a tackle in the open field, but I've been really impressed how comfortable he's been, and he's only going to get better. I think Pete mentioned it this week that he's in position for interceptions, and once he starts making these plays around the ball, it's going to be an all-around starter, and that gives them such an advantage at cornerback. They really haven't had that great answer opposite Sherman since Maxwell left, and they've been moving people around. And to have a guy like this who's ready to play as a rookie, that was a huge boost for them. Naz Jones is another rookie who's really impressed me. I think they viewed him when they drafted him as more of a run stuffer, but he's really shown to be an all-around, an interior disruptor, and he's played limited snaps, but he's held his own, and I think he's a player. Yep. To get that, those 2 guys in the 3rd round it's been really good. Tyler Lockett's another guy I would shout out, coming off a major injury. He's looked really good to me. He's been open a ton.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, Brian might disagree. I think Russell's been more of an issue than Lockett has. If you look at every single game film, Lockett is wide open numerous times. Down the field.
You're right. I guess I haven't seen Lockett look nearly as explosive as he has in the past.
No, but he's consistently open, and his route running is ridiculously good.
Yeah.
I think he's pretty explosive.
I don't disagree. I just thought that was interesting.
Lockett had those the end arounds that have been pretty good. He had that screen pass I think he caught along the sideline in was it the Niner game maybe where he kind of almost broke it up the sideline. I think he's actually looked. I think Lockett's a really good, pleasantly surprised. Just talking about where he came from with that injury.
Exactly. From a disappointment standpoint, sticking at receiver, it's got to be Nemhauser Darbo. We were so down on him in training camp. Brian was kind of the first guy. I know he was a 3rd-round pick to say he shouldn't be on the team. Has he done anything yet? I know it's only 5 games. I don't want to judge too much, but I know everyone's been bagging on McAvoy too. What has this guy done? He didn't do anything in training camp, didn't do anything in the preseason. The team kind of hyped him up after they let go of Casey Williams. I want to see something, just something to believe in.
It might be one of those things where we don't really see a real offensive impact until year 2. Maybe when P. Rich walks, maybe there's like a plan there. Nathan's shaking his head. No,
I just don't want to think about Preach leaving. That makes me sad.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the contrarian here, as I often am. I mean, my expectations were low, so it's all about where your expectations were when you're talking about surprises and disappointments.
I want to see something.
I like the way he went up and got the ball in traffic in Green Bay, even though he was pushed out of bounds on that play. I thought that the chances he's looked effective in trying to go after the ball. I think he is a fifth receiver that is a developmental player and an athlete that they're going to try to, I think to Evan's point, you might see more than the following year. So it's hard for me to call him a disappointment, but I can go on a long streak if you want to start going off of like Sheldon Richardson. Can't say he's been a disappointment overall, especially this last game, but disappointment relative to my expectations. Yeah, I was expecting a lot more than what I've seen so far in terms of disruption. Justin Coleman, huge pleasant surprise. Like, I mean, for that guy to come in, and I'll say it, I think he's a better slot corner than Jeremy Lane. And like from the get, I think he was a better slot corner than Jeremy Lane. And I know Jeremy follows me on Twitter, and maybe some of the tweets I was sending out was leading him to talk about people sleeping on him. Maybe not. I'm not trying to be egotistical. I just know I've caused that before. I'm just being honest. I think Coleman has been a real pleasant surprise. And you can go on down the list. I think Nas Jones definitely has been a pleasant surprise. I think that I think Frank Clark was starting to be on the disappointment list, but has definitely come on strong. I expected so much from him, and now he's getting snaps. Yeah. So,
what about Odiomba? What about Odiomba? What do you guys feel on him? I know he's the backup.
He is who I thought he was.
You know, he was the worst tackle in the league.
Yeah.
I was optimistic for Odiombo when they drafted him. It was obviously concerning that he couldn't see the field last year. I thought maybe he shows some stuff in the preseason where he would not be the worst tackle in the league. But he is a third-round pick who is the worst tackle in the league, and that's, not great.
George Fant was the worst tackle in the league last year.
Yeah, but George Fant
Justin Britt was at one point the worst tackle in the league. Doesn't mean that he's of no value.
Reese has got 4 years on Fant though? I guess Fant's maybe a little older too, but Reese was an old rookie, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, I don't know.
You know what's disappointing also? That all the Seahawks linemen who leave become incredible.
Oh.
Did anyone see Russell Okung last week? Like some of the highlights of him? Like
manhandling people.
Forearm shivers, and J.R. Sweezy now can pass protect? I don't know if you guys follow Duke Manyweather on Twitter, who's probably one of the smartest offensive line. He was tweeting out, called Sweezy the most improved offensive lineman in football. I don't know if they could have afforded him.
Yeah, it's really weird how these guys come here and aren't good and then go somewhere else and are better. I wonder what the common denominator is.
Huh. Interesting.
Well, all right. Before we get into a pity party here, let's just all thank our lucky stars who are not New York Giants fans, right?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, talk about crushing. I don't even know. I haven't even gotten all the details on the Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie situation. There's some rumors that he was fighting with the coach, physically fighting, and was suspended, and they got 3 receivers out. The Texans lose 2 of their major pass rushers in 1 week. Yeah, we've got some issues. Offensive line's been improving week to week. I would say, I think the bigger, more interesting question is, we've all been really hard on Tom Cable, and I think he absolutely deserves it and more. But we all talked about Ifedi being a pleasant surprise, looking like he might pan out. Justin Britt is a Pro Bowl alternate at center and has been decent this year. Who we all said was a totally bad pickup and was overpaid, we're all admitting actually looks decent. So at one point do we start saying, all right, if this line's developing week to week and they lost their starting left tackle and they're still, doing what they can do, he deserves a little bit of credit for that, as much as it might be hard to give it. And you could make the argument right now they've got a left tackle and a right guard problem to solve, and the other 3 spots are not horrible. And that's where you get into some of these, I think, reasonable rumors about left tackle. And I know Jeff's going to have us talk about that at some point.
Yeah, so that actually leads to my next question. We've mentioned that Joko is getting his knee scope. I think it's tomorrow, Thursday, I believe. What do they do in the offensive line now? Who plays left tackle? Who plays left guard? There's a couple options. I don't know if we can make trades for them or sign players for them, but given what they have with Ethan Posick or Glowinski or Isaiah Battle, maybe Tobin, who's been their sixth lineman, how do you guys think what the hell do they do here?
I'll start on this if that's okay. I'm a huge proponent of moving Reese to left guard and then aggressively going after Brandon Albert. I seriously think that was out of kind of like the recent situation of, rumored guys of who Seattle is going after at left tackle. I think Brandon Albert, considering the compensation, the cost, he's not going to require any draft picks in the trade or anything like that. Like, he's a free agent on the street. I think, and he's only 2 years removed from like a Pro Bowl season. I mean, he's the same age as Dwayne Brown. So I think, considering the cost, compensation, the whole situation, and the Seahawks cap in perspective, I would seriously, aggressively go after Brandon Albert. I'm kind of bummed that he's visiting New York later this week and that he kind of got out of the facility without a deal. So who knows what happens, but I'm really bummed. I'm really bummed that they are kind of appearing to let him walk.
Why would New York sign Brandon Albert? What's the purpose of doing that?
Maybe they're delusional like the Cardinals.
I mean, 0-5, you lost half your team for the season. Your quarterback's old and sucks anyway, and he's going to make horrible faces for us all to laugh at. Like, why are you trying to prevent any of that?
Well, you got to sell tickets, right?
Brandon Albert's going to bring him in, yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go on with your question, Jeff.
No, that's the question. I don't know if Brian or Nathan wants to chime in, but for now, do you guys have any solutions to this offensive line thing? Because
it's really weird to me that we're talking about, like, what the hell are they going to do on the offensive line? And should they go sign this guy who, like, up and retired on his team? Or should they trade a ton of compensation for, a good left tackle who's holding out? They have a second-round pick sitting on the bench doing jack all. Like, you want to talk about disappointment with Reese? Ethan Posick can't beat him out. Like, what is he doing? I get it. He's the backup center. Like, you figure that out. You bring back Joey Hunt. You call Lemuel Jean-Pierre or whatever. Like, Posick should be seeing the field with. It's one thing to say he's a second-round rookie. You've got George Fant and you've got all these guys, and so he's going to ride the bench. But, like, you've had a series of injuries now. You've already benched a player for poor performance, and Posick can't see the field. That's problematic to me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that he might. I think that might be part of the answer. I think some people are going to assume that Glowinski is going to go back in. That would be an obvious choice, that he'll take over for Joko while he's out with this injury. I actually don't think that's the case. I think the team is ready to see what else they have. They've seen plenty of Glowinski. They know what they have there, and I don't think they're expecting something to, all of a sudden change. Maybe it will, but I don't think they're expecting that right now. So your choices are a couple. One, Risto Diambo was your backup left guard. You could slide him inside and put Matt Tobin out at left tackle, or Isaiah Battle or something like that. I don't think they generally like to move multiple positions, so I think they keep Reese where he is, and I think that they're going to elevate Tobin to left guard. Is something that might happen. He was actually a guard and a tackle in Philadelphia. He's a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. He's a horrible pass blocker from all accounts.
Hey Brian, is there something going on with your mic, or is it the audio?
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah, it's just there's some start fading a bit.
Huh. Well, maybe you guys want to go on. I'll try to talk later.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, were you guys hearing that too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I didn't want to interrupt like a jerk, but it was started fading.
No, please do.
Okay, so Brian did mention the Giants. So getting back to maybe the roundtable, Brian sent this question in earlier when we were all talking. I think it's a good point to bring up now that he mentioned the worst team in football. So how good is the Seahawks team? After what you've seen the first 5 games, it's been a crazy up and down start. They seem like they've started to figure it out. But maybe how have your expectations changed after these first 5 games, and where do you see the ceiling for these guys right now?
Nathan, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I was kind of talking about this the other day actually with a friend of mine. They have that feeling of one of those kind of established sports teams that's been good for a while, and they're maybe not as hungry as teams that are kind of on the come, and so they kind of sleepwalk a little bit. The Packers did this a little bit, a year or two ago, and you see teams that are good and that have been good for a while that kind of, they don't shoot out the gates, they kind of just hang around, just kind of find ways to win. And so I think that there's still, a really good football team here. There's the identity stuff on offense and where they go with that, I think will probably end up deciding a lot with just how good they can be. But they're a good team right now that still has the chance to be a great team.
No, I completely agree. I think they're still I still think they're a top 5 NFL team talent-wise. I think they absolutely are Super Bowl contenders, even with the struggles of their current offense. I think their defense will end up being that good. I think, as Nathan said, the offensive line is really probably going to determine how far they go unless Russ catches some serious heat. And Russ is a really streaky player, so who knows? Maybe Russ comes out firing the rest of the season. But I think the offense is really gonna take this team as far as they can go. So
can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I think you're back to normal now.
Well, I feel like I want to at least get at what I'd said before, which is I think they're either going to keep Reese at left tackle and bring Tobin in at left guard. Tobin played guard back for the Eagles as well, so I think that might happen. Or they'll give Posick a shot. So I think that what Nathan said is definitely a fair point, and we'll see. And the question for this time was what? How good are the Seahawks?
Yeah. And have your expectations changed after the first 5 games?
Damn, that's a tough one because my expectations were sky high. So I would say that they're not as high as they were. But I look around the NFL and there's no team that I see that scares me necessarily, where I see a really dominant team, and that might just be the new NFL, to be honest. But the Patriots, they have a great offense. It's going to always be hard to beat, and they have the worst defense, a historically bad defense, and including their win in Tampa Bay, which should have been a loss. They're giving up 400 plus yards a game to everybody. The Chiefs, who I have a lot of respect for, I have a friend that's a Chiefs fan talking all the time. I'm like, I get it, but get back to me when Alex Smith is the guy determining whether you win or lose in the playoffs and the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl. I wouldn't be intimidated to face Alex Smith against our defense. I don't care who they have on the other side of the ball. So anyway, I could go on and on. So I don't think the bar is as high as it was in 2013. I don't think this team has to be like the 2013 squad to be a championship quality team, but they've got to get to, the way I put it is 0 of the first 8 quarters of offense were good. 0 of 8. I would say that the second half of the Titans game, so 2 quarters there, the second half of the Colts game, 2 quarters there, and the second quarter of the Rams game were all really good, bordering on great. So that's, put that together, that's 5 quarters. Sorry, 2, 4, 5 quarters out of the last 12. So you're almost batting 50% after going 0 for 8. I think they need to get to where, I think this team consistently can win if their offense puts together 2 great quarters. But if they can put 3 quarters together, then I think we're going to start seeing a consistent victory. So, that's kind of in my mind what I'm looking for is, can an offense be consistent enough to put 3 good quarters together without being dominant?
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And I think all of us had higher expectations for the offense, and that's maybe shifted our expectations a little bit, especially with Russell, how good he looked in the preseason. Last year just seemed like a total anomaly. He was hurt. The offensive line was as bad as you're ever going to get, and they had no running game. I think we all assumed that Russell would be a lot better, the running game would be a lot better, and losing Carson and Fant, that has had an impact. I think if you have George Fant, you could arguably be maybe you're 5-0 right now. That's crazy, but as bad as Reese has been, I'm not the biggest Fant guy, but there are plays in that Green Bay game and that Tennessee game where you're just whiffing. So that has hurt, but I think we were all kind of similar that the Seahawks, I think they showed a ton in that last game. And I don't know. I know you don't want to overreact to one game, but the fact they were able to hang tough, play that kind of defense at all three levels against a pretty good team. I think the Rams, I'm not the biggest Jared Goff guy like Nathan, but I think the Rams are a pretty good team. And the fact that the Seahawks could win with basically nothing out of their offense in the second half, I think that says a lot about this team. I think there's a lot to like about this team, but maybe they're not that dominant 2013 level team we thought we were going to see out of the preseason. But I think they're an NFC contender. I think they're going to get better as the year goes on. And one of the best things about Pete Carroll is his teams always get better as the year goes on in the second half. And there's still a lot to like right now of this team. So
can we do something real quick, Jeff?
Yeah.
Let's test this and just see.
Sure.
I'm going to quickly go through the games the rest of the season. I've got it right in front of me.
Perfect.
Win or loss. You can go thumbs up, thumbs down. All right. So Giants, everyone expecting wins. So that's one. Houston, home. Okay, everyone's a win there. That's two. Washington, home. Okay, everyone. So we got 3 wins.
They're going undefeated the rest of the way.
At Arizona, for me, that's a win. Anyone disagree? All right.
I think they stink.
I do too. Home against Atlanta. Okay, interesting. So I'll go with that. Everyone's down on that. So I'm going to say that's a loss. That's one loss. At San Francisco. Oh, look at Evan's got that as a loss.
Mr. Positive.
We're going to lay a turd in San Fran. I'm telling you. I'm the most positive person ever, but we're going to lose in San Francisco this year. Or Santa Clara, wherever the hell they are. I'm telling you. No,
okay.
I think it'll be that one strange rivalry game that we lose, and I know this is like a blowing concept for Evan to predict like this that the Seahawks lose, but I think this is one of those games where it just happens. Like shit happens sometimes, and I think this is gonna be that game.
Let's err towards conservative and call that a loss too. All right. Home against Philadelphia. Split 50-50. So Evan and I are up. We think are going to win. Nathan and Jeff are no. So Nathan and Jeff, why?
That Philadelphia D is legit.
Yeah, I think their D-line smokes the offensive line.
Yeah.
They're still looking for their franchise quarterback, though.
Don't tell the Browns fans.
How did that game go last year, and why is the Philadelphia defense any better than it was last year?
I don't know. That team just feels better. I mean, they get Philly at home, right?
They do.
That makes it, I don't know. You talk about teams that I'm scared of. That's not a lot, but Philly's one I'm concerned about.
But Russell catches touchdowns against the Eagles.
That was actually a pretty close game.
Runs for touchdowns.
Yeah. They got 2 players on their defensive line that made a pretty good group. 3 guys, actually, that made a pretty good group. Really good. Derek Barnett was their first-round pick. He's a pretty good pass rusher. Timmy Jernigan's been really good for them. They got him from Baltimore. He's a really good interior player beside Fletcher Cox. And Fletcher Cox absolutely destroyed, I think, Lewinsky last year. And they got Chris Long, who's not the best at this point of his career, but that game with them last year was pretty close, but Wentz had a couple bad mistakes that kind of turned. He threw a pick to Chancellor at the end of the half, and there's a couple deep shots he tried throwing. So I think Wentz has gotten better. He's not – some of his underlying stats say he's not that good still, but I think that's a pretty good team right now, and I had to pick a loss somewhere. I didn't want to pick San Francisco like Evan, so I have to go somewhere.
Yeah. All right. So we'll call that a loss too. So we've got Atlanta. That's gonna be a 3-game losing streak if it goes the way you guys are talking about. That sounds pretty bad. At Jacksonville, I got a loss.
Oh, wait. No, we're gonna win that game.
Interesting. I'm the only one that thinks they're gonna lose that game. I think that's the only great defense they're going to face the rest of the year. I think the Eagles are way overrated, and they're going to be in pain. But that Jacksonville defense is insane right now. They're playing at a true elite level. I think passer rating around 58, something like that. And their whole defensive line is just brutal. Like, I think at every position, Calais Campbell, Malik Jackson, their first round pick, what was his name? Dante Fowler, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that game on the road, I don't see us winning that game.
They're not going to lose to Blake Bortles.
That's right, Nathan. We're not going to lose to Blake Bortles. Do you know who Blake Bortles is, Brian? We don't lose to Blake Bortles.
Sorry, guys. By my rules, it's a loss because one of us. That's 4.
I think they let him throw only once in the second half of that game last week.
Yeah, I mean, they're not letting him do anything with good reason. I can't fathom a world where they lose to Blake Bortles.
You shut down the run game, and then you force Blake Bortles to throw the ball. What's going to happen?
Here's what's going to happen is that they're actually going to win the Philadelphia game and the San Francisco game, and they'll be flying high, and they'll go in, and everyone will be like, how the hell did we lose to Jacksonville? That's what's going to happen. So
yeah, that probably sounds more realistic.
Home against the Rams.
Yeah.
I got that as a win. All right, we're all there. At Dallas.
Oh.
That's a tough one, right? This is Christmas. I think it's Christmas Eve or something like that. I'm going with a week win. And Jeff's got him as a loss. Tell us about that, Jeff.
I just think the way to beat Seattle is to beat them up front, and I think that offensive line against kind of our defensive line, that we've had trouble when those guys have come. And I don't know. I just think Dak and Zeke, it's a tough place to play. I don't know. And we always have trouble with that Marinelli defense. I don't know why. It's not that good, but he's got some similar to the Packers. He's got Wilson's number.
We have trouble with the Marinelli defense because we've got the Tom Cable line. I think that's pretty much it.
All right.
I hope I'm wrong.
So then the final game is home against Arizona. I think we all have that as a win. So losses we had in there was Atlanta, San Francisco, Philadelphia, Jacksonville, Dallas. That's 5 losses. We've already got 2. So we're talking 9-7.
Well, that's if everyone's right.
Can we throw Evan's vote for San Francisco?
You picked all the wrong losses.
Come on.
I'm telling you.
And I was outnumbered in that Dallas game 3-1.
Yeah, if we dropped
the majority count as losses.
If we dropped it down to games where only one person thought it was a loss, that would eject Jacksonville and San Francisco, and Dallas. So then that would be
12-4.
12-4. So maybe that's our range. 9-7 to 12-4 is what we're looking at.
So we have no idea.
It's only like a quarter of the season. It's okay. All right, thank you for putting up with me. I was curious.
That was good. And actually, Evan touched on an interesting point before, and one of the things we were doing earlier on the show that we haven't done in a bit is kind of look at a front office view of things. We're always trying to take the big picture perspective. We're kind of looking at the team from different perspectives. I know Evan's the biggest John Schneider fan in the world, so we'll let him be John Schneider for this segment, and the rest of us can.
Hey, where's my John Schneider shirt? My eye on you. Hold up, I got to get no. Actually, continue talking.
I need it. So Evan mentioned his view on this earlier, so I want to get on this a little more because the big story around the Seahawks, and I don't know how many people were refreshing Twitter like crazy that day when Brandon Albert news leaked, was they had Albert in for a visit. And that kind of came out of nowhere. It shocked some people. And Brian has been mentioning this maybe since George Fant got injured, but this rumor keeps sniffing around. Dwayne Brown and the Seahawks. Evan wrote an article for Hawk Blogger this week going through different scenarios, how it could work cap-wise. There was interesting moves with Jimmy Graham and Michael Bennett and taking on the credit card cap situation. Okay, so I want to ask you guys, just from a front office perspective, we'll put on our Schneider hats right now. Option 1 is you give up the big compensation and you get the good left tackle, the guy who's really going to stabilize you. He's playing his own blocking system. He's been holding out. Dwayne Brown has been a Pro Bowl level player, both pass blocking and run blocking for quite a while. Option 2 is you bring in Brandon Albert, the guy who, as we said before, he left his team. He hasn't played all year. He had kind of a down year last year after a pretty good season. They traded him to Jacksonville, and he didn't want to show up unless he got a ton of money. Philosophically, what makes more sense, especially from this team, how they built it? That's awesome. Do you A, trade for the better player that's going to cost you more cap-wise and compensation-wise, or B, do you go with the lesser player who's going to cost basically nothing other than money or cap room? What makes more sense?
Who's starting?
You wrote about it.
Oh, good point. I guess that's true. I would, I don't know, like trading for. I have such mixed thoughts on this. Like, of course, it'd be awesome to add Dwayne Brown to the mix and immediately upgrade that left tackle position. I think it would immediately change and impact the offense in a big way. But at the same time, you're also probably going to give up a lot. The rumor is first-round pick that is what the Texans want. So I am not a huge fan of shelling out that first-round pick, especially considering we don't have that second-round pick. So if we shell out that first-round pick, then we kind of give away that opportunity to trade down and reacquire those picks that John Schneider does every single year. So considering cost compensation, much rather go the Brandon Albert route. But, I mean, I have a feeling the Texans are going to want to haul.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be one thing if Dwayne Brown wasn't 32 and holding out for a contract extension.
Yeah.
But he's 32 and he wants to get paid. And I don't know how Seattle really. I mean, there's always ways, and I mean, you talked about that, but like, it doesn't seem like a wise investment to me.
Yeah, no, touching on what you just said, it's one of those things where obviously with the rookie wage scale system, you get 4 years of a really cheap contract and really cheap club control. And, if you trade for a star left tackle who's immediately going to get paid, what, like 13, 14, 15 million a year, something insane, you skip those years of really cheap club control where you can kind of like build the roster and, add talent in other areas. So you're immediately going to the elite, like I'm paying an elite player level, which – I mean, paying an elite player isn't a bad thing, but it's not ideal when you can draft and develop type of thing. So, good thoughts.
What about you, Brian? Any contrarian takes here?
If you can get Dwayne Brown, get Dwayne Brown. Make it happen. I've seen it happen too many times with sports teams that have, and it's not just football. I've seen it in basketball too. For all the Blazers fans that remember way back in the day, they add Buck Williams, and all of a sudden that '90s Blazer team comes. Now, you guys were, some of you are probably not born yet, but Evan. I've seen that as well with the Seahawks when they added Chris Perry and on right tackle, and it helped that team take off. And granted, I don't think we're one lineman away from this being a great line the way we were with the Chris Perry situation back in early 2000s. But like I said before, I see two major holes, and I think if you get down to a line that has one major hole, you can scheme around that. You can game plan around that. But it's really hard when, your left tackle is as bad as our left tackle is right now. And we just all talked about it. This team has the potential. This could and maybe should be the best defense in football again. Russell Wilson has the potential. The receivers and the receiving options have the potential. And I look at the people that they'd probably be looking to trade. If they want a first-round pick, then it's not going to happen. I don't think they're giving up a first-round pick for an old tackle. But do I think a guy like Jimmy Graham, maybe a guy like Michael Bennett? I think that's a harder thing for me to imagine. But could it be Jimmy Graham? Yeah, I think he's on a $10 million deal, and he's gone after this year, and I don't think he has any intention of coming back.
So I've got a question for you on this, Brian.
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham and a third-round pick. Your general manager, John Schneider, are you making that trade?
100%. 100%. No hesitation whatsoever.
Okay.
I might get some pushback from Nathan. I invite it, but Jimmy Graham is not needed for this offense to be great. A functioning offensive line is needed for this offense to be great. And so, my evidence I will always come back to is the 2015 second half of the season, and people can call that whatever they want in terms of, one specific point in time. But Jimmy Graham was not part of that uprising. And pretty much all the weapons we had back then are still here, plus Paul Richardson. So anyway, I really think that they need to get a left tackle if they can find one. And I agree with you. If they can bring in Brandon Albert, but they got to bring in someone else.
Yeah, you bring up 2015 and Jimmy being out for the second half of that year. The thing that changed there is that they took a disaster in Drew Nowak and they replaced him with a competent player. And maybe you can do the same thing and take a disaster in Reese and replace him with a competent player, and you don't need to go get a Dwayne Brown to get that same kind of improvement.
That's not exactly what happened, though. I got to call you on that. Nowak was replaced much earlier than when that happened. Jean-Pierre came in, I think, in game 4. And I can go back and double check if you guys want to talk for a second. But the real change happened while we're on bye week. It really happened after the bye week. They made a significant change to their scheme design in that they went to quick passing. And Pete was honest and open about that. It was very obvious in how they started approaching things. And Jimmy was there for part of it. So it wasn't that they got better because Jimmy left, because Jimmy was part of the Pittsburgh game where they were going off and then he got hurt. So I'm not saying that they can't be good with Jimmy. That's not the case. And I've seen people try to say that. And that's not true either. The timing doesn't match up at all. But he was not the reason. He was not required for them to be the best, most efficient offense we've seen them be during, the last 4 or 5 years.
So I just took a look at it. Nowak started 7 games. Bye week was week 9, so he went out right before the bye week. It looks like. So he lasted a while. I mean, they did. It was more than just Nowak. You don't just replace the center and turn into the best offense in the NFL. But I mean, it certainly helped a lot. And there's no reason that they can't do the same type of stuff that they were doing then, and they have been doing some of it, right? I mean, they had a 15-play, 75-yard drive on Sunday. That's insane. So, I mean, they can still do it. They can do it with Jimmy. I don't know that they need to go all in for a Dwayne Brown. Maybe you can get that same kind of replace a black hole with an actual NFL player and see a big gain from it.
So is there any chance Jimmy's coming back next year, or is this it for him regardless?
I'd be surprised.
Yeah. It seems like Seattle loves to extend players like right in between that 3rd and 4th year gap if they're going to extend him, and obviously we're in the last year of his contract. They could still extend him, but considering what I think he's gonna ask for in terms of money and what I think teams might be willing to pay, I don't see him fitting in with like all these extensions that Seattle needs to do. I mean, we're talking, do you want to extend Frank Clark? Do you want to extend Sheldon Richardson? Do you want to extend Tyler Lockett? Do you want to extend Earl Thomas? Do you want to extend Richard Sherman? Like, we've got a ton of people to extend. Like Luke Jokel,
Richardson.
Yeah, Richardson. There's a lot of big decisions to make, and I mean, Deshaun Shedd, if he comes back and starts balling, maybe you want to give him a little chunk of the pie. I mean, to me, it's very hard for me. Like, I don't know. There's a ton of big Jimmy Graham lovers on Seahawks Twitter, and I totally get it and I respect it. But to me, his salary, what he will demand, will not justify his role on this team, if that makes sense.
So can you take on another big salary that's going to be longer than a year into Dwayne Brown if you have all these guys to sign, right?
Yes, you could, but somebody else is going to go.
Okay. So who do you lose to get Brown?
I mean,
who are you willing to lose?
If you trade for Dwayne Brown, then I don't think you could.
Cliff Averill?
Yeah, I mean, Cliff Averill has to walk. I don't think you can do Sheldon and Frank together.
What about Bennett? What happens with Bennett's deal?
I think Bennett's here to stay. honestly. There's been, like, Davis has talked about a big roster bonus that he has in 2018. I don't think he's moving on. Like, they just extended him. I really don't see them moving on a year later. I think he still has some in the tank.
Yeah, that's the question, because I know Albert. I wonder if Albert's a money thing right now, because Evan, you mentioned in your article this week. What do they have, $1 to $2 million in cap room right now?
It's like nothing.
he wanted like $10 million a year to stay with Jacksonville. So I know it might just be that. It might be just be he wants more money, and that's why he's going to New York.
Oh, it totally could be. It probably is. That's exactly what it is.
Because I know Ben Albright, he's a writer, he's a radio guy in Denver, mentioned they were using him as leverage for Dwayne Brown. Do you guys buy that, or is that just a total? You buy it?
Oh yeah, John Schneider plays some evil mind games. Are you telling me? Are you kidding me? John Schneider's playing like a 3D chess match right now. We're all like pawns in the world. I'm telling you. No, but actually, I do think it's a leverage move. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I don't have a hard time believing that at all.
So when they play Week 7 Giants game, who's their left tackle?
Seattle or New York's?
Seattle. I don't know, who cares about New York. That guy's gonna.
Eric Flowers.
Yeah, he's a disaster.
I have no idea. I mean, it's probably still. If they haven't made a change yet, why are they going to? I mean, who knows? Maybe Brandon Albert comes in or something. But it just seems like if they haven't made a change yet, I don't know why they would.
I'm betting John Schneider makes a deal.
Oh baby.
I'm betting John Schneider makes a deal. I think he's looking at what he's got. I think this bye week came at just the right time. Not just for this particular issue. I think this is when they do their assessment of their team. They take that time. They self-scout. They're looking for tendencies. And are you guys hearing me okay?
Your mic.
It's pretty garbled.
Yeah,
Dang it.
it's going again.
Darn it.
No worries.
So I just don't see them giving up first, right? So that's probably not going to happen. I can't see Schneider coming out of this year with no first or second. We got to throw it out. Is a third and Jimmy Graham worth it? Evan, you're the draft guy. You're the cap guy.
I'd do it.
You do that deal. You do that deal? I would too.
I take maybe Nathan disagrees, but I think I side with Brian on this one. I think having a left tackle, like a solid left tackle, to me is much more critical and like beneficial for Russ than having like a really good tight end. I think Russ is one of those people that loves his route runners and is okay with working with the small receivers. And I'd rather keep him upright and I'd rather keep him protected. And I think I'd rather invest in his protection, honestly.
What was the deal again?
Third round in Jimmy Graham for Dwayne Brown.
Third round's kind of they're terrible at the third round now. All of a sudden, that's their new thing. Although I mean, that's not true. They got Shaq and Naz. Yeah, that's true. It's a little rich. And to me, it's really just about the pick more than anything. I mean, if Jimmy Graham can go a long ways to getting you Dwayne Brown, I don't hate that deal. I think I would hope you'd go a little farther than having to include a third round pick, though.
Okay, so how about this? Updated Jimmy Graham in a third round pick for Dwayne Brown in a fifth round pick.
Yeah, I do that. I think. Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
All right, let's get Schneider on the horn.
We worked it out for him.
Let's get this done right now.
Is my mic any better yet?
No, that sounds better.
Well, let's try this again. So I think we're at the right point where they're self-scouting. That's what they do during the bye week. And I think that it's also coming when Dwayne Brown's getting the most leverage or starting to lose some leverage. And there's no potential movement in what he's going to demand from a contract from a new team and from what his team's willing to do. You've got the Texans who have been able to survive and actually thrive without him. So I think they're realizing that maybe they're better off moving on and getting something for him than sticking with him. So I do think there's an option there, and if that doesn't work, I guarantee you Schneider's calling every team that he think has any reason to potentially I know everyone wants to hear Joe Thomas. I don't think he's just I just don't think he's available.
Let's stop talking about that.
I just don't think he's available.
Joe Thomas is not available.
No, but yeah, I absolutely think Schneider's going to try to make some move on the offensive line before we play another game. But if I had to guess who's going to start against the Giants, it's going to be Reese.
Okay, another trade I want to ask you guys about. Don't want to spend too much time on this one, but Adrian Peterson to Arizona. What'd you guys think of that? Does that make them better, or is it them just grasping at straws?
I'll start. I have a hot take. I think it makes them worse. Seriously, I don't think bringing him in adds anything to their offense at all. I think AP is washed. I think their offensive line is garbage. I mean, why? I don't even understand this trade. Like, I wouldn't even trade a 2018 conditional pick for him. I don't think it makes them better at all.
Yeah, I love that Arizona's like the elephant's graveyard for future Hall of Fame running backs. So from that perspective, I really enjoy the trade. I don't know if it makes them worse just because Kerwin Williams and Chris Johnson are so bad. But yeah, I mean, it's not a needle mover, I don't think. I'm surprised they – and we'll see if they actually end up – what the condition was of the trade, did that come out? I didn't hear the details of the pick. And
conditional sixth.
Really? Yeah. Interesting. That doesn't seem like a good deal at all.
Look, I've been all over the place in the Cardinals. So first, I've got to acknowledge that I can't. In the preseason, I was like, I can't believe that Vegas has got them as an 8-win team. I think this team's got so much talent. I think they're going to be better than that. What am I missing? What I was missing is that their offensive line is worse than the Seahawks' offensive line. They're one of those. There are a few this year that fall in that category, and they are definitely one of them. And unless Adrian Peterson's going to block for himself or he's going to block for Carson Palmer, they're not better in any meaningful way. Yeah, I think Carson Palmer isn't going to last the season. People talk about Wilson and the hits he's taking. Palmer's taken more hits and is certainly less durable than Wilson's proven to be.
I'm really with Evan on that one. And I couldn't believe it turned on Twitter yesterday, and people were just raving about that trade. I mean, Doug Schwartz is like the perfect guy to get. And I know Brian mentioned this before with the Giants. To me, the Cardinals seem delusional. At some point, and I was listening to Mike Lombardi's podcast this week, and I just thought I was being a jerk. I'm not the biggest Bruce Arians fan. I'll admit that. I kind of love cheering against that team. I find them obnoxious, and they're blamers and they're finger pointers. And they probably think that about Pete, I imagine, but I find Arians obnoxious. So I've maybe a history of bagging on the Cardinals whenever I can. But to me, if you watch them play, they just look washed. They look like a team that's heading nowhere. And Philly just beat the crap out of them. They barely beat San Francisco. I guess so did we, but that game was ugly. And to me, they're a team that, like, why are you trading for a 33-year-old running back? If anything, you should be going what we're saying the Giants should be doing. Go into that trade deadline and try to move all your assets and get better next year. They're like the grumpy old men team. I don't know. That's what Mike Florio called them. It was a great name. But I don't see what they're doing. And to get another old guy on that team is probably the last thing they needed. So to me, I don't understand why the media just loves the Cardinals. There's something about them. I don't know. It just bothered me yesterday. To hear Mike Lombardi say the same thing, that made me feel a little better. But
they're heading towards last place in this division within the next couple of years. Like by next year, I'd expect them to be the fourth out of four teams. I think Palmer will retire. I think Fitzgerald will retire. I think their line is a mess. I think you can see Valdir retire. He's already talked about that. I think their defense is good. I like a lot of who they have on defense, but they don't have a plan at quarterback. And I think you look at San Francisco, they're a quarterback away from being a interesting team. And we've already talked about the Rams. So the Cardinals have been built for now, and I think they're gonna be in trouble come as soon as this year, and then definitely into next year.
It was interesting. We were going to be planning for a buy sell segment, but funny enough, we pretty much hit on every point We were going to talk about it.
I just want to jump in real quick.
Yeah.
Brian, you said that the Cardinals do not have a plan at the quarterback position. I want to tell you something. You are wrong. Bruce Arians completely disagrees. On August 31st, 2017, Bruce Arians was quoted, and maybe you guys know what I'm about to say. Blaine Gabbert has the long-term potential to be a starter. So we may have a long-term starter at the quarterback position for the Cardinals. It may be Blaine time for the next day.
I sit corrected. I'm sorry.
I can't stand Arians. He drives me nuts. Harbaugh used to drive me nuts, but I don't know. I respected Harbaugh a lot more than I respect Arians. I don't know what it is about him. Maybe because the media just slurps up every comment he makes. But he just says stuff like that all the time. It's just outrageous. How could you think that Blaine Gabbert is the long-term answer?
Yeah.
I don't know. That bothers me.
He's a little overrated.
In all fairness, Pete says some pretty amazing things himself.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that. I'm saying the Arizona fans are probably saying the same thing about Pete.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. I've said it before. I was not a Pete fan before he came here, and he won me over, but I did not have a strong impression of him before he got here. So anyway, listen, fellas, this was great. Jeff, thank you for hosting as well as you always do. And I want to thank our everyone that's joined. Been an active chat conversation been having on the side here. It's been good stuff. If you haven't already, highly recommend take advantage of the Pagliacci Pizza deal. Pagliacci Pizza is a sponsor. They're helping us out this year. We're in turn helping you out. Buy an 11-inch pizza Monday through Thursday. Get in a second 11-inch pizza for free just by using the code HawkBlogger. So super easy, awesome pizza. We used it today. I've seen a lot of you guys have been using it, so take advantage of that. And also want to thank sponsor Steam Donkey Brewery, who's been with us since the beginning, been doing great stuff. And we didn't get to do our buy sell segment that's brought to you by Steam Donkey, but they get a shout out anyway.
It's fine. We covered everything I wanted to talk about in that segment. We covered Coleman. We covered Affetti. We covered the run game. So that means we were really productive tonight.
I did not get a chance to sell on Justin Coleman. That's okay. I just want to let people know that I last time I was on here, I sold on the Rams, and I feel very vindicated about that. I hope I'm wrong about selling on Justin Coleman, I guess, but yeah.
Oh, we're gonna go at it. I'm looking forward to that conversation.
He might need to learn how to tackle.
Yeah, or stay on his feet.
Oh, guys. God, like the tackles that people expected him to make in that game were crazy. Like they were not easy tackles to make. And yeah, people missed tackles. Shaq Griffin missed a couple key tackles in that game as well, as did KJ and some other folks. So it happens. This is a guy that was like on a practice squad. What are you hoping for?
Yeah. Hold on, I want to get one more rant in before we go. What the hell is with the third and long defense? How have we not talked about this the whole show? How many third and longs did they give up in that game? And even that first, why can't they figure that out? Why is their zone so soft in the middle, or all these dump offs are getting wide open? It drives me nuts. They can't get off the field sometimes on 3rd and 12, they take a face mask, 3rd and 16 or whatever. That third down defense was driving me absolutely nuts. I was spinning around my apartment like I was a madman.
I think part of it's Richard. I've never been a big hater of Richard, but he's never been super impressive to me, and I think that was not one of his best games. But Pete has an interesting kind of thing about his defense where he always. I remember them talking, or somebody talking about how he's okay if you want to dump down to your fullback, or if you want to dump down to your blocking tight end. Those players aren't in the NFL anymore. You look at all of the Rams. Their tight ends are Gerald Everett and Higbee. Those are two guys that can do some damage with the ball. The running backs are Tavon Austin and Todd Gurley. And Malcolm Brown, I think, is the third guy, and he looked pretty good. And obviously all the receivers can do a little damage if you give them space, and so they're getting bit by that a little bit with the way the NFL has changed. There's no Tukuafus to just let a team dump down to and then swarm and tackle. Like these guys will pick up yards. They can pick up 10 yards on 3rd and 10 if you let him.
You guys are ruining my golden parachute, which is I'm going to get a job as an offensive quality control coach for any team facing the Seahawks. And I'm just going to tell them 3rd and long, dump it over the middle, 1st down every time.
Yep, right to your running back.
Yeah, I'm going to make like at least $100,000 a year just with that advice.
We're all dumbfounded.
Hopefully Ben McAdoo isn't watching the podcast tonight.
I'm gonna be sorry when Ben McAdoo gets fired because he's my son and I get a lot of laughs watching him on the sideline. So, all right, dudes, I gotta run. Thank you for another fun week talking Hawks.
Cool. Have a good one, guys.
See you guys.
All right, we'll be back next week with no game to talk about, but there'll be a lot to preview for that Giants game. So have a good week, everyone.